In February and March of 2026, I'll be back on the road in Hull, Gateshead, Derby, and in Colchester. 2026 is when they want to cross the line as fast as they can into an AI-controlled humanity. We stand up now or we regret it forever. That's 4 dates, and you can get the tickets in the link below. Well, I'm going to start with a word that many people might think, ooh, that's over the top, but I don't think it is. And that word is fascism. One of the definitions I've seen over the years of fascism is the fusion of government and the corporate state. And that is exactly what is happening around the world, but specifically currently in the United States. And, you know, we're getting all these executive orders from Trump that are being fired in all directions. And if you're not careful, there can be so many, and it can be so confusing, and there's so many things that come and then replace others in the news cycle, that you can lose touch with the overall theme. And I say that is unfolding fascism. And people might think that's far-fetched, but we've had Marco Rubio, the Secretary of State in the Trump administration, saying this week that he had an offer, having visited El Salvador, from their leader to take not just illegal migrants or migrant criminals from the United States and to put them in El Salvador jails, which are pretty horrific, but actually also to take American citizens. For American citizens to be shipped out to El Salvador for their jail sentences. And what if some of them, and some of them will be, there always are, innocent people wrongly convicted? How do they defend their case from El Salvador? And we've also been told by the Trump regime that the first of some 30,000 migrants, illegal migrants, are being shipped to Guantanamo Bay to be put in detention. And at the same time, Trump says he wants to, in effect, take over Greenland. He wants to absorb Canada into the United States. And more obviously, and more confirmation, I'm going to get to that as we go along, tells us that the government is being taken over by artificial intelligence. That's the game. And that's why they want to fire all these people in government administration, because ultimately they want to replace them with artificial intelligence. And I saw a post by this satire site, Babylon Bee, much beloved of Musk, that said, tongue-in-cheek, it says Trump becomes first fascist in history to reduce the size of government. As if in the AI world, the size of government in terms of personnel matters anymore. Fascism is not about the size of government. It's control by government in league with corporations. And so, thanks to AI, you no longer need vast numbers of people running your fascist regime. AI can do much of it for you. And a friend of mine posted a quote from a book that I wrote and was published. I wrote it in 1994. It was published in 1995, called "And the Truth to Set You Free." And the quote said this. I'd forgotten about it. The attempt to achieve this coup on the human race will be done by making the present world so awful and chaotic that anyone promising a new world will be like the Pied Piper, purely out of desperation, just like they did with Hitler, the savior for Germany's post-war misery. And that is what is happening. What they've done is push the world through the woke period, controlled by the global cult, to an extreme point. And then the same global cult, working through other people that appear to have a different political ideology, come along and offer the solution to this extreme with another extreme, and both ultimately are taking the world in the same direction, which is control by AI in terms of society, but also human fusion with AI. So AI becomes the human mind. And, talking of fascism brings us to Donald Trump and Benjamin Netanyahu this week. Netanyahu, of course, the first foreign leader to visit Trump since his inauguration. And it used to be sometimes years between you predicting this is the game and this is the planned outcome, and that outcome unfolding. Now it's bloody days as the whole thing speeds up. So this is what I've been saying for a long time, is the plan, and has been the plan, in relation to Gaza. One, allow Hamas to breach the security fence on October the 7th with no response. What happened? Two, use this as the excuse to mass murder tens of thousands of men, women, and children, so many of them children, and create what Trump has called a building site or a demolition site. Three, say as a result of that no one can live there now and the Palestinians must be moved to other countries, ethnically cleanse the land, which has been the plan all along. Four, Israel annexes the occupied Palestinian West Bank, secured by Miriam Adelson's $100 million support for Trump. Five, redevelop Gaza as a seafront resort for Israelis and the rich. And six, move on to secure greater Israel, a greatly expanded Israel, and replace the Al-Aqsa Mosque in Jerusalem with a rebuilt Solomon's Temple. And these things are now starting to happen so fast. Trump said in a news conference with Netanyahu that Palestinians can't stay in Gaza after Israel has turned it to bloody rubble with American weapons. And so the Palestinians would have to be moved out of Israel and into Egypt and Jordan. So there is number 3. Tick. Say no one can live there now and the Palestinians must be moved to other countries. Ethnically cleanse the land. But then Trump went further and said the United States would take over Gaza and, quote, clean it up. What he means is turn it into a seafront resort or Riviera, as he calls it. And that's exactly what I talked about being the plan last week. So this is part of a report by Greg Reese on what Trump's been saying.
Israeli lobbyists, Miriam and Sheldon Adelson, have given Trump well over $100 million. And according to Trump, they have been his best customers.
You know, Miriam and Sheldon would come into the White House probably almost more than anybody outside of people that work there. And they were always after, and as soon as I'd give them something, always for Israel. As soon as I'd give them something, they'd want something else. I'd say, give me a couple of weeks, will you please?
On the same week, it was announced that the government just saved $1 billion. $1 billion was sent to Israel. And President Trump's first guest to the White House was Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, wanted by the ICC for an ongoing genocide.
Would Palestinians have the right to return to Gaza if they left while the rebuilding was happening?
It would be my hope that we could do something really nice, really good, where they wouldn't want to return. Why would they want to return? The place has been hell. It's been one of the meanest, toughest places on earth. But you take certain areas and you build really good quality housing, like a beautiful town, like someplace where they can live and not die. Because Gaza is a guarantee that they're going to end up dying. The same thing's going to happen again. The U.S. will take over the Gaza Strip, and we will do a job with it, too. We'll own it and be responsible for dismantling all of the dangerous unexploded bombs and other weapons on the site, level the site and get rid of the destroyed buildings, level it out, create an economic development that will supply unlimited numbers of jobs and housing for the people of the area.
You are talking tonight about the United States taking over a sovereign territory. What authority would allow you to do that? Are you talking about a permanent occupation there?
I do see a long-term ownership position, and I see it bringing great stability to that part of the Middle East and maybe the entire Middle East.
Taking over land occupied by other people and throwing them out so you can take it over. Can you give me a better definition of fascism? And this has been the response. Outrage to Trump's Middle East Riviera proposal as critics fume its ethnic cleansing disguised. Disguised? Democrats were stunned and outraged after Trump on Tuesday declared the U.S. would take over Gaza. The 78-year-old president made the jaw-dropping declaration at a joint press conference with Netanyahu. And among the internet comments quoted in this article are about what has happened in the next to no time since Trump came in with his regime. Occupying Greenland, absorbing Canada, taking over the Panama Canal, now taking over Gaza. And none of this was mentioned in terms of Gaza and Greenland, Canada, etc. in his election campaign. It's the same story. Tell them what they want to hear so they vote for you, and then do what you always intended to do when you get in. So the story says more than 40,000 people have been killed in Gaza since Israel launched strikes after the events of October the 7th, 2023. Hundreds of thousands of people have lost their homes, and families are only just beginning to return to the rubble after a ceasefire deal was reached last month. So now we turned it to rubble with American weapons, and now we're going to take it over and redevelop it as we always plan to do. Also, US said, this is a Times of Israel article, US said they are readying, that's the word, to approve new $1 billion arms package to Israel. So when Trump says, well, if the Palestinians stay there in Gaza, they're just going to go on being killed. What he means is they are going to continue to arm Israel with bombs that will be dropped upon the Palestinians in Gaza until they agree to leave. That's what it's all about. All the rest is bullshit. Washington is preparing to provide weapons and military equipment to Israel to the tune of some $1 billion as part of a new package, the Wall Street Journal reported. The newspaper said that Trump's administration has asked Congress to approve the transfer, which will be funded through military aid money the U.S. provides to Israel. It includes thousands of 1,000-pound bombs, as well as armored bulldozers used by military engineering. Well, you'll need the armored bulldozers to clear the site so you can build your bloody Riviera, right? Meanwhile, Trump is expected to stop U.S. engagement with the United Nations Human Rights Council. He has now. And continue a halt to funding for the UN Palestinian Relief Agency, United Nations Relief and Works Agency, a White House spokesman said. And there's other things that have gone on as well to the detriment of Palestinians. And then we'll come to the West Bank, because you've cleared the Palestinians out of Gaza, in your mind anyway, and your intent. But there still is an area called, well, it was once called the occupied West Bank in Israel, which is a Palestinian area. Well, it used to be, until all the settlers moved in and violently took over properties and land. And there were sanctions against the settlers for doing that by the United States, but Trump stopped them as soon as he came to office. You see the pattern. So the West Bank is planned to be annexed by Israel with Trump's support, thanks to that $100 million gift to the Trump campaign by the super Zionist Miriam Adelson. And Trump was asked about annexing the West Bank, and his answer made the intent very clear.
You're prepared to meet with Benjamin Netanyahu.
Coming in tomorrow.
Yes, you've mentioned in the past you're concerned about Israel being too small geographically. Would you support annexation of parts of the West Bank by Israel?
Well, I'm not going to talk about that. It certainly is a small, it's a small country in terms of land. See this pen, this wonderful pen? My desk is the Middle East. And this pen, the top of the pen, that's Israel. That's not good, right? You know, it's a pretty big difference. I use that as an analogy. It's pretty accurate, actually. It's a pretty small piece of land. And it's amazing that they've been able to do what they've been able to do when you think about it. There's a lot of good, smart brain power, but it is a very small piece of land, no question about it.
And of course, what's been happening in the West Bank during this ceasefire in Gaza is that the Israeli army has been targeting Palestinians and Palestinian properties and land, and so of the so-called settlers, as they've gone on moving towards that point of annexation. And add to this the fact that Trump has been pushing for more laws in America against, quote, anti-Semitism. And that, of course, is to silence exposure and opposition to what he's doing and the Israelis are doing. And Trump's also threatening to cut all funding to South Africa, you may have seen this week, claiming it's over its policy of land seizures in South Africa. Now, there are some terrible things that have happened to white farmers in South Africa. And it shouldn't be happening. And at the same time, there's still a vast disparity of land ownership between the different ethnic groups in South Africa. But then again, having said that, that disparity is all over the world. Look at the land ownership situation in Britain for a start. But there's another angle you can view this with. It's South Africa that brought the ongoing case against Israel for genocide in Gaza with the International Court of Justice. And I can't imagine that that is unconnected to what's going on. And America is, and Trump is also wanting sanctions against the International Criminal Court over the arrest warrant for Benjamin Netanyahu. Everywhere you look in this Trump regime, Israel rules. And it's driving United States, not only foreign policy, but domestic policy as well. Quite blatantly and ever more so. Now, how is this justified by the Israeli government and supported by so many people of the Christian faith? It's because the Old Testament is taken to be official history, and therefore the connection between the Jewish people in the Old Testament and the land we call Israel, indeed Greater Israel too, is said to be desired by God. Well, I'm sorry, what are we doing? Well, actually, I'm not sorry. What are we doing justifying happenings, actions in 2025 because of something that is in a book, the Old Testament of the Bible, written by who knows who knows when, in who knows what circumstances. And actually, this is at the core of the nonsense that's been unfolding in the land that was once called Palestine. Now, Russell Brand, who's converted to Christianity, posted something this week, which really just gets to this core of the ridiculousness of where we are and why we're here. What he wrote was, regarding the Israel-Gaza situation, as a Christian, when you read the Old Testament, you have to acknowledge that there is a unique, particular, and sacred relationship between the Jewish people and that land. Where is the line drawn? What is permissible and what isn't? So, who wrote the Old Testament? And what are we doing using that as the premise and the confirmation that all this time later, that the land must be run by Israelis? Who decided that? Anyway, here's what he said.
Israel's problems would be the US's problems like never before, and the US would be permanently associated with Israel in the eyes of the world. Relatively ironic, right after Trump got elected to put America first, which I'm pretty sure didn't include settling a colony in the most conflictual land on earth. And in terms of soft power, not sure Americans have fully fought through the consequences of becoming one and the same with an apartheid ethno-nationalist state that's abhorred by such a large proportion of the world's population. That's where I would sort of declare my part. As a Christian, when you read the Old Testament, you start to have to acknowledge that there is a unique, particular, and sacred relationship between the Jewish people and that land. And I wonder, where is it we're drawing the line of what's acceptable, permissible, and what's not acceptable? Are we saying that the colonization of America, for example, is unacceptable? Certainly would have seemed such to the people that were occupying this land.
So we have a book, the Old Testament part of that book, that gives Israel today, it is said, the right to that land. We don't know who wrote the Old Testament. And what we do know is that the Roman Empire created Church of Rome, compiled the books of the Bible long, long, long ago. We also know that the British Empire, controlled by the Rothschilds, manipulated events, not least through the Balfour Declaration during the First World War, to hand that land to Israel on the basis of what is said in the Old Testament. Now, I repeat, that is the foundation premise on which the whole thing stands, and it's nonsense. What are we doing in 2025 having a book written all that time ago by who knows who, dictating ownership, rights, and even being quoted in support of mass frickin' slaughter? We have no basis of factual history, supportable factual history, on which this can be justified. And You know, I look at the world and I shake me bloody head, where people self-identify with being this race or this culture, and it defines them and it defines their interaction with other races and other cultures and other religions. And the body, whether it's Jewish or Muslim or white or black or brown or any bloody color, is merely a body type. It's merely a vehicle for consciousness, the true I, to experience this reality very briefly. And yet, the self-identification with it continually divides and rules the target population so the few can control everything. And we need, if we're going to bring an end to this ridiculousness, we need a re-evaluation of human self-identity, of what this reality really is. Because if we don't go through that, we are going to be played off against each other and divided and ruled into total AI-controlled slavery. And you know, they talk about the Schwab Great Reset. Well, the response to that, I would suggest, is another great reset. A great reset of the human mind and human perception. So we see through the crap of color and race and religion and all this stuff, all the fault lines of divide and rule, and realize and see that we're all being shafted by the same force. And while we are divided, it shall rule. The great reset of human perception, human self-identity, human thinking, that's what's required. And if it doesn't happen, then we will be divided and ruled into a level of slavery. Think of the kids and the grandkids. That is almost unimaginable. And it's happening all around us every day. If you want to read more and watch more of my content, then go to the description under the video where you can buy my books. The latest one is The Roadmap, where you can get tickets for public events, and how you can subscribe to a fantastic video channel called Iconic, iconic.com.